I represent a company called Mindshare. We are the largest marketing media services company in the country, and we handle the marketing budgets of certain big blue chip clients like Unilever and PepsiCo and HSBC and Ford and so on and so forth across a bunch of categories. And our job is to make sure that the marketing budgets of our clients are spent in the best and most effective way possible, so that it yields them maximum return on their investment, whether it's in terms of making consumers really like their brands and gravitate towards their brands, and obviously translate into sales. So that's what we do. And yeah.
Thanks, Parthasarathy. Santosh.
Yeah, to introduce myself, my name is Santosh Bhat. I'm currently heading the data sciences for Hotstar. And prior to this, it's been almost a year now here. Prior to this, I started actually the entire data science practice at Vintra. Was there for about 3 years, almost 2.5 years, I think. And I've worked in a couple of companies. Started off as at that time in 2004 or so, they used to call us scientists, but we were predominantly in what today I think we call as data scientists. Pretty much the same thing.
Nowadays, everybody is called as data scientist.
Yeah. So that's when I came back to India with General Motors. I was with as a researcher, and then worked with Microsoft India, set up the analytics practice, went on to solve some interesting problems in the digital space and so on. Yeah, you can say that. I mean, most of my life has actually been solving all of the internet type of problems.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Dr. Tetiana?
Hi all. It's the third time during these 2 days when I should introduce myself. But I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it. So my name is Tetiana Kodliuk. I am a chief data scientist at Tech company from Ukraine. My company developed the analytic platform for the hospitals of USA, but it isn't just the one project. Inside of my company, there are a lot of different projects where we also have the contact with the media data analysis, and even speaking about the medical data, speaking about the hospitals, we again and again should use different media sources for data aggregation, for even these predictions. We can analyze the users' behaviors, etc. So this area is very actual today, and I'm happy to do the discussion. Thank you.
Anand, please. So you're powering all Wake Up India. India want to know the history screen, right?
My pleasure. My name is Anand. I'm a co-founder of a company called Gramener, a data science company. We mostly work on visualization and analytics.
I loved your presentation.
Thank you. It was a wonderful presentation. So he gives a voice to this gentleman. India want to know tonight. And Anand shows all the graphic from behind, like what India want to really know. So Anand, this is start with you. So you have been trying to really solve a lot of problems which India media is facing, right? So what do you think, what are the top 5 or 3 problems which you're trying to really solve using data science or visualization?
Storytelling, data gathering, and interest identification. Probably the top 3 that I would pick. Let me explain. We are not great data journalists as a nation. We're trying to get there. You see the likes of the newsroom in New York Times, print, digital, so tightly integrated that it's not even, it's a very seamless workflow. The way stories are told, there's a lot of innovation in the formats. And today, I see that happening with the big team, but nowhere else really at scale. The idea here is that stories can be told in very different forms. As you scroll through pages, the data changes and shows you some That stories can be told through data itself, that you can crawl through data and identify new pieces of insight. It is not something that is established. It has emerged. It's taken 5 years for it to emerge, for it to get established. I think that's one clear area. The other is using data itself as a source, which is broadly the theme of data journalism. By digging through the census records, I can find anomalies. So for instance, if you dig through the MPEGA records, you will find that Odisha has issued for every 100 people in the state 101 employment cards. How they managed to do that is a big question. Mizoram has managed to give 104 people work for every 100 that have a card. Interesting statistics. Or if you look at the data for Karnataka student marks, you will find that there is suddenly a huge number of people who have 50 marks or 60 marks or 70 marks, perfectly round numbers, indicating that the teachers aren't really adding up the marks. They're just saying approximately 50, approximately 60, which you won't find in Tamil Nadu where they're very diligently adding up the marks. Now, this is data as a source of stories, and that too is something that is weak today, partly because we have the skills and we're hoping that we can solve that. The third is trying to figure out what is interesting, what is useful. A lot is being spent on the field of consumer insight. What are people, what do they want to know? And this too can be done in fairly interesting ways. For example, if you go to Google and search for how to, right? For almost 2 years, the number one suggestion was how to kiss. That's what India wants to do. It's recently been superseded by how to make. In the US, it was until very recently how to vote. It happened even after the election, so maybe the country woke up. In some ways, this is a mass scale survey, and we have the results of that handed to us in a platter. Why not use that? Social listening is something that we popularly talk of, but this is a spin on it that's somewhat different, and helps us understand what it is that people are looking for, and being able to derive that insight and being able to segment people into clusters that have different kinds of interests and catering to those interests in a niche way. That I think is probably the third biggest area that we have been looking at and exploring. So, storytelling, data-driven content, and understanding the customer's psyche or insights are probably the top two areas.
You're trying to empower the data-driven. Parthasarathy, what, in your opinion, what are the key challenges which the media industry is facing, and how data science can really resolve it? Perhaps anybody can take that.
I think it's two sides of a coin, really. I mean, is it a challenge or is it an opportunity? Is always the
how do you turn
question. Yeah.
Challenge into opportunity?
So I think the challenge is in understanding what people really want to do or see or experience from brands at any given point of time. The challenge is that people are losing their attention spans faster than ever before. They say that we have now beaten the goldfish in terms of the 5-second attention span. The opportunity is the amount of data that's available to mine and to understand really in depth, because what our job is to really kind of craft that consumer persona with as many layers like an onion as possible, because beyond just knowing that he is a 25-year-old man living in Bombay, what more do I know about this individual? And how many different kind of data touch points can I use? Whether it's the data a brand owns, whether data on how the guy searches, like you said, what is the social kind of footprint, what is his browsing pattern, what is his interest segments, and all of that to kind of create that really well-rounded persona of the consumer.
360 view of
Yeah, 360, and then how do I have so many new opportunities in data to target each of these people in a very, very different way with very different messages in a very dynamic manner. And that's the opportunity. I mean, again, the challenge being the deluge of data and make sense of it all, and then, and measure it and prove to our clients that this has actually moved the needle when it came to either brand saliency or brand sales. So I think that is the ecosystem we are playing in, and it's fascinating, and it's evolved so much in the last 2 years for us that it's a great opportunity.
So now everybody and a lot of companies are trying to really create this 360 view of a customer, single view of the customer. I haven't come across anybody who actually done it successfully. It's so difficult process to really do, and everybody is trying to be perhaps like companies like Facebook or Google might be having, or maybe Netflix. But how are you trying to resolve this problem?
Good question, because we are trying to do that. I think pretty much all the companies out there are trying to create some sort of a user profile, and this is my third shot at it. In my last two stints, I actually managed to do it to some extent. So, like say in my previous stint in the e-commerce firm, so we created a user profile engine where the data was actually much richer. So why I say that is essentially because you tend to get pretty much all the information about the customer, like address, the behavior across, the browsing behavior, his preferences for brands and so on. So what we could do with that is essentially at a fundamental level, you could actually derive his affinities for different brands, different categories, and so on. We did actually use that for personalization and even to do some campaigns basically on our portal, right? So I'm trying to do the same thing at the current organization, which is at Hotstar, but the challenges are very different because we have kind of decided to have this democracy where we don't necessarily ask anything from the customer.
Still really steal the information.
We only get we get very little information, but then you have to derive all the insights through his content, like his content preferences and so on. It's actually it's an interesting data science problem.
So how do you really don't cross the privacy limit, but still you create the 360, which is certainly not possible if you don't cross the privacy limit. And how do you really achieve that, right? So that's a very complex problem. Dr. Tetiana, throw some insight. How do you really actually create this 360-degree view of a customer, which is a very complex problem?
Yeah, of course. Maybe to speak about the challenges, okay, I would like to speak about challenges in different areas. Let's start from the television, for example, from the recommendation. I think that there are a lot of problems in the recommendation system, despite the fact that we have a lot of algorithms which can solve this problem. I think that you have the situation when you would like to buy something, then you have the recommendation, then you bought it, but you again receive the recommendation. Okay, so the first challenge is to control the action which customer or user did. And the same is in healthcare when the doctor prescribed the medicine, but the doctor can't control if the patient took this medicine or not. The same is when you would like to watch the movie, and the Netflix, for example, recommends you to watch this movie, but they can control if you watch this and if it was interesting, if you didn't leave the review for this. But very interesting solution from the Netflix, maybe you have heard about this, it's like smart socks which you can wear and they can control if you sleep during the movie or not. Speaking about the publishing, of course, we have a lot of data. We should take the gold from this data and drop the garbage. But I had the problem with scientific publishing. So in order to be on the ship as data scientist, I should read a lot. I should read a lot about new algorithms, about new maybe approaches, etc. And I faced a massive number of applications in computer science, in the statistics, etc. But I would like to read only that which will help me for the main project. And for this, we created the service which can process some millions of scientific publishing, and then to grow that articles which are which something more or less the same, and then recommend you for example, the first time recommend you first 10, 20 the most topical articles in deep learning, for example, or in natural language processing. And after that, you can move and move and move in this direction by using the recommendation and the most similar approaches in this. So it's like the small service, and but you know that Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, would like to create the same service for medicine, for PubMed, for the healthcare area, in order like to join different researches regarding the one illness or one problem or one treatment, and it is really challenge to join the same information from different sources around the world.
So this recommendation, like I have a trouble with recommendation system. So if I watch say a couple of say 2-3 crime patrol episodes on YouTube, and next time it will really keep on showing me that, right? And I'm not interested in watching that. I'm interested in watching something, right? So these kind of recommendation system, this artificial intelligence kind of stuff, actually is artificial. They are not really intelligent, knowing what exactly next time I'm going to really watch. I watched something last week doesn't mean that the same thing I'm going to really watch next time. How you're like really have this something, because you sometimes you lose customers from that.
Yes, I mean, so you can alienate people essentially if you actually end up, showing the same
Typecasting that stuff.
Yeah, actually. So the answer lies in essentially looking. I mean, so here is what happens, right? Like in a country like India, so where you get lots and lots of people when you have free content out there, and so you have at one side you have absolute sparsity of data, because of which you end up actually showing up only the the content that you watched or the most popular ones, right? At the top of the pyramid in that sense is actually the you've got the real loyal customers or whatever, like the most engaged customers. For them the recommendations tends to get all right. So what has to kind of so a few things that I don't think we've still cracked that entire piece. What helps is essentially look at kind of introducing new, like for example, there are different techniques. Like if you've been interested in a crime patrol kind of a genre.
No, I'm not interested.
Just giving an example.
Give an example.
Yeah. So if you're interested in say crime as a genre, right? Can we suggest some other kind of shows that and then look at your people like you who've actually done something, and what else have they liked, and then basically put them into, I mean, kind of narrow the space down at that similarity, and then look at what other people could have seen, and then try to randomize it in some ways.
You had encountered this phenomenon?
No, so I think there are two things, like you said, and I think now the analytics has reached a stage where you know that if this character appears and if they cry for 10 seconds, then the TRP rating is likely to go up by so much, versus if that character comes, and you can do that level of analytics. But I think 2-3 things which are really coming out very interestingly is the, like you said, like-minded people and the overlap of segments, and therefore saying that if a person does this and that, the higher propensity to do the third thing is something which is today measurable. And the other thing is the path, the entire analytics of the path. Does this guy watch a trailer of a clip on a video and then see a banner ad and then click on post something on social and whatever, and what is the contribution of each of those actions along the path to the final action which he's doing, which could be watching the show. And the level of attribution analytics which is today possible for the entire path of the journey towards watching that, I think has evolved to an extent that you can get it right most of the time. You can't get it right all of the time, because there'll still be some people you piss off. But the whole aim is to minimize the number of people you piss off and maximize the
people like me are the outlier. You don't have to really bother. So Anand, like you go beyond the recommendation system, you really try to really find out what this whole country wants to really hear the news. How actually you do that? Pretty challenging task.
How do we identify what it is that people are interested in? There's an assumption here that you're making that people know what they want, right? Not entirely sure how great that is. And even if we take the whole scheme of the recommendation systems and use that as a basis for identifying, the fact that you see the same ad which you believe you don't want time and again, does that mean that time and again it is showing you irrelevant stuff? Or does it mean that it's trying to influence you time and again and change your mindset towards what it wants? Content is believed to be helping people understand what is happening, and advertisement is supposed to be driving people towards certain actions. If we believe in that distinction, then advertisements are doing exactly the right. They are an auction-based model in many cases, and what they say is, if I show you the same thing over and over again, the advertiser gets actually more money here, one way or the other. So it doesn't matter whether you like it or not. On the other hand, on the content side, that is not supposed to be the case. But having said that, how much of content today is actually around presenting as opposed to positioning? It's really around saying, I believe that this is important. I believe you should see this. I believe you should take note of it. And is therefore as much agenda driven as advertising. That is not as much, but there certainly is a very strong element of that. So I would say the answer to the question, what is India interested in, isn't as important as what can India be made interested in.
Wonderful. So you are trying to change the behavior.
Yeah. And if in the hands of someone who is driving it towards good, it is a very powerful tool. In the hands of someone who is driving it towards bad, it is very equally dangerous tool. But fact remains that media has a scale of influence that is so powerful that it isn't really constrained by interests as much as it is a driving force.
So you kind of trying to really help them to change the behavior and their interest, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't matter what you're interested in. What matters is what you want them to be interested in.
It's into extreme views, right? Or it's our view and
No, so you made one good point out there, right? So particularly in the online space, online video space, right? I mean, how do you induce that behavior of actually coming back and watching? And that's an important question. I think probably the answer lies somewhere in it, right? So,
like Game of Thrones, right? So these guys could really actually force us to really go and binge watching, right? Just to stop the piracy, right? And they made people to really force. And person like me who used to do the torrent, I paid actually. What else? So, Parthasarathy, so what your company does, like what kind of consulting you offer to your clients, and what are the challenges you're facing? One challenge which you can talk about, which you really solved recently.
I think like I said, my objective is to say that if a brand has 100 rupees, 100 crores to spend, how do I do that in the most effective manner so that they get the maximum out of that? Right, across consumer cohorts, across brands, across markets, across interest segments, and so on and so forth. I think one of the challenges really is measurability. And the more people say there is measurability, the more there are controversies about whether that measurability is true or
And
false.
person like cynical like me don't believe that, right? That you can actually measure that.
And combined with that is the fact that you have data at various levels. You have some data which is extremely fast moving, this is real-time data. You have certain data like maybe a sales data which comes off a Nielsen panel which might come once a month. You might have a brand track data which comes once a quarter. And then you have in the middle a lot of white noise from social media and other things which comes and goes as it pleases and is very whimsical, right? So how do we pull together all these streams of data and try and say what has actually contributed how much to the end outcome? So we believe there is obviously input, there is output, and there is outcome. And very often measurement stops at output and doesn't go to outcome because there's a chasm between the output and the outcome. I can say I've reached 10 million people and I know that 500 people have bought it, but what is the contribution of the 10 million people I reached to the 500 people?
Right?
So I think it is improving. Like I said, path analytics is one kind of solution. There are a lot of other attempts at doing this, but I think, and as the number of channels and as the number of ways to connect with consumers keeps increasing, each one of this requires, clients ask for measurability for everything. And in the absence of measurability, it's like for some of us old timers, we remember the DOS command, which was revert to last version save, right? So if you try something new and you're not able to measure it, then you go back and say, okay, I'll just do a 30-second TV advertisement and hope that that does this. So I think it's that it's driving towards that measurability across all of these data streams.
So how you're seeing the trend, like you advise to multiple clients in different industries.
Yeah.
So which channels you're seeing where the ad investment is going maximum and with the outcome, better outcome?
See, the growth is definitely in all forms of digital communication, more so in certain categories than some others where it can be performance linked in a much more solid manner. But that doesn't mean that things like television are going away because we are still an expanding nation. Your TV audience is still growing. A lot of that is happening, and so many new brands coming in who have top of the funnel challenges as well as bottom of the funnel challenges. So they need to make people aware of them as much as they need to convert the last mile. So therefore, it's a combination of that. But I think where it's coming out is there are very clearly roles and tasks by different media channels, which are becoming more and more clear over time, and what kind of media can be.
But digital media, like, is easy to really measure, right? But say print and television, this is very difficult to really measure. So any of you want to really take this question? How do you really do that? Print and television.
It's a tough question because to some extent what you're saying is true. From a television, I think the measurability is a challenge, but it does, but the digital medium is not necessarily great for specific type of, say, campaigns or let's say brand awareness and so on. Yes, people do claim that you can actually do a great job at brand marketing, but I have not seen that so far. But there are, as he rightly pointed out, I think there are some roles that that a television plays which the digital media cannot, and it's only a supplement, right? Or rather an incremental reach or.
Yeah, I've seen digital media ad on the print media. So how do you really measure the print media's impact, right? Which is very difficult.
So that's a known benefit of the digital media, right? So, but what I'm saying is, but there are still some other, like for example, a print media. If you are, let's say, local, if you're trying to do some micro-local things and that's just an example. Print media actually works well, right? As compared to say going digital, where you will still have a problem of targeting, getting the funnel, and so on. So again, I think it depends on what you're trying to do.
Firstly, let's define what we are measuring here. On the one hand, all the numbers that we have for television are based on a relatively small sample that has been extrapolated to the rest of the country. But on the other hand, let us also recognize that that is the relevant reality because that's what advertisers are paying for. So it doesn't even matter whether this is what the actual audience wants, this is what brings us the money. Having said that, in fact, we were just playing around with some data last week in a very simplistic way. We know across a huge number of brands how much is being spent. We know what is the sale of that particular brand at a reasonable granularity over a reasonable period of time, about 3 years or so. So now we can do a simple model that asks the question, when the television spend increases, when the radio spend increases, when the print spend increases, how is that impacting the sales? Now, the assumption here is that these are the only three factors that are impacting the sales. That is not true. However, over time, assuming that there are no systematic factors that are correlated with the ones that we are measuring, it's a reasonable assumption, especially when you do this over thousands of times. And what that allows us to do is answer the question, for every 1,000 rupees more that I spend on television versus print versus TV, etc., what has a larger impact on sales? And the answer was surprising. Assume that the market would be efficient and therefore the numbers would be the same. Turns out that it isn't. Far from that, in fact. Television spend is, in fact, more effective than TV spend, even factoring in the price. What I mean is that on a percentage basis, today, if one spends 10% more on television, one is getting a higher return on sales than if one were spending on TV or print, even though we've factored in the higher price of television, so which means that there's still room to grow. which is not always true. There are specific markets, for instance, where print beats TV. Also, there's a longevity factor. TV has a negligible longevity. The impact is curtailed that same month, whereas print, in some cases, has an impact that follows on to the next month. So that too has to be factored in. So this is analysis that's being done at a very macro level. It has its issues when it comes to if you apply it to a specific brand or a specific set of brands. But when you take it across the industry, the results are interesting and also fortunately reasonably reliable.
Wonderful. So we should open it to audience.